We are in this chapter, Sankhya and Yoga, and in our yesterday's class, we have been told about the two original principles of Sankhya system of philosophy, and we know a little bit about their nature, that Prakriti is energy and Purusha is the soul, the consciousness. But they are two eternal principles, and that's why Sankhya is based on the philosophy of duality. Well, from here maybe I'll take off a little bit and tell you in brief the background of Sankhya philosophy as it is given to us. And also maybe I'll give you a chart, as I said yesterday, about of the different evolutes. And then maybe we can come back to what Aurobindo has to say. For Aurobindo himself in this paragraph, in the next para, has given us all the evolutes, but maybe putting them in a chart would be easier for you. You see, as we call Sankhya the philosophy of duality, it seems it came to be a philosophy of duality much later. In the sense, it is supposed to be one of the oldest systems of Indian philosophy, but which in the beginning it did base itself on the Upanishads and was a theistic philosophy, and also had the supreme Brahman as the one absolute reality. But it seems it was subsequently that under the influence of Jainism and Buddhism that Sankhya became what it is now. That means, as we know, Buddhism did not acknowledge the supreme reality. So Sankhya also under that influence rejected its idea of the one supreme reality and stuck to its duality of Purusha and Prakriti. And it is because it rejected that supreme reality, it was also taken off the list of the Upanishads. Because in the beginning it was even considered as one of the Upanishads, but later Shankaracharya and others came to say no, as it does not accept the Brahman or one supreme reality, it cannot be considered as an Upanishad. So it was kind of, taken away from the list of the Upanishads. So it stood more as a philosophy of thought. Not only a philosophy of thought, but a philosophy which is more or less purely theoretical. Nothing to give as a practical, something that really holds this philosophy on the practical level. But, as we said yesterday, this theoretical knowledge was really supplemented by the yoga philosophy. Because we have a whole lot of these systems of philosophy. We have Vaisheshika, Nyaya, Purva Mimamsa, and then there is Shankara's Vedanta, there is Buddhism. So all these schools, as we discussed once, they really supported each other, or there was a tremendous sense of competition, who would be sharper and better and more logical, more impressive than the other. So that was an age where there was really a lot of tremendous intellectual activity. That's when the logic system of Nyaya and other philosophies developed immensely, and even Buddhism brought about a logic system which can be compared with any logical system of the modern times. So, it is not that India was really, what Aurobindo says, we do not have the power of original thinking now. One of the reasons that Aurobindo tells for the downfall of India is that we have sort of abandoned original thinking. We have been only aping the West and the European culture. So we have become more imitators than original thinkers. So that is the real bane of our country, and not really the material poverty, which is actually as a consequence of the lack of original thinking. You see, if you are a second-rate thinker and if you are all the time aping others, then obviously the poverty of thought translates itself into poverty of matter. So this is where India became poor. And you can see just the opposite there in the West. They have been innovative, inventive, and the thought was original. So it reflected in matter, and matter itself became very rich and powerful. So what I want to say is, well, these were the developments in the last 1,000 years or so, since the time of the attacks of the Mughals. But prior to that, as we see, we had a very acute intellectual atmosphere where there was plenty of debates, and you'll hear many stories how one acharya takes upon another acharya. There's a long debate. Sometimes for days together they would argue to prove which philosophy is better, etc. So that was a tremendous intellectual activity. Well, also we have had great universities like Takshashila and Ananda and all these universities where there was a very high level of intellectual activity. So, however, Sankhya is that theoretical aspect which has really given us a sound philosophy, sound as far as the structure goes, but we will see how it has also got some kind of inbuilt weaknesses. We'll come to that later. Aurobindo himself will tell us. So, the two major principles of this philosophy are Purusha and Prakriti. Now, I'll read out something on Prakriti from one of the philosophical books this is by Sharma, I think. Yeah, Dr. C. Sharma. The description given is, the theory that causation means a real transformation of the material cause leads to the concept of Prakriti as the root cause of the world of objects. All worldly effects are latent in this uncaused cause because infinite regress has to be avoided. Well, you can see it's a simple logic. This question of the infinite regress. We keep on asking ourselves the question, who created this? What is the source of this? What is the source of that? We can keep on, starting from myself, we say, okay, it's my parents, and then the parents to back again parents, infinitely humanity, then the earth, and then... So this is called the process of infinite regress. So ultimately, where do you land up? What is the source from where all this has come about? So normally we would say it is Brahman or God or divine or whatever, that he or she is the source of this creation. But here in this philosophy they said Prakriti is the source of creation. And Prakriti itself is uncaused cause. In fact, in another philosophy also we have the word Swayambhu. I mean, it's born of itself. So there is this, one of the definitions of the divine is uncaused cause. That means beyond that there is no cause. Up until the divine we can keep on saying, this is because of that, that is because of that. Now we don't say Brahman is because of what? Nothing. So there the game stops. So that is why we have got the word uncaused cause. Or the word Swayambhu, self-born, is not born out of something else. It is Swayam. It is born out of oneself. So Prakriti is supposed to be that uncaused cause. As the uncaused root cause, it is called Prakriti. And as the first principle, it is called Pradhana. And also it is called Avyakta, etc. Different names are given to that. But what is important is that the entire world of objects is implicit in the bosom of Prakriti. Evolution is the explicit manifestation of this world of objects, while dissolution is the returning of this world to Prakriti. So this entire creation, as we have got in Vedanta also, is there as a potential in Prakriti. Like we say, when Brahman started creating, the multiplicity is already there in the Brahman. So too, they have a similar idea that this entire world of objects is there as a potential and implicit in Prakriti. And then manifestation begins. And evolution is the explicit manifestation. Sankhya believes that consciousness cannot be regarded as the source of the inanimate world, as the Vedanta believes, because an unintelligent principle cannot transform itself into unintelligent world. You see, this is a very important logic. One of the things that we should learn when we do Indian philosophy is try to see the philosophy from its own angle. First of all, at least let's understand. Then we can compare and bring about the weaknesses and all that. Now, first of all, they say Brahman cannot be the creator. If there is anything called Brahman, they don't accept. Say even Purusha cannot be the creator of this world, for the simple reason that Purusha is consciousness, whereas this matter is unconsciousness. So how can unconsciousness come out of consciousness? Therefore, there must be some other unconscious root cause out of which the world has come. This is a very simple logic. So they put consciousness Purusha aside, and then they say all this unconscious matter has come about from the root unconsciousness, which is Prakriti. So it is very clearly divided. Prakriti could produce all the unconscious objects, while Purusha consciousness remains same. He doesn't create. So that's what drove them to, in fact, to put Prakriti as one of the major principles. And then he says, on the other hand, the material atoms of the physical universe too cannot be regarded as the cause of this world, because they cannot explain the subtle products of matter like intellect, mind and ego, and further because unity of the universe points to a single cause while the atoms are scattered and many. You see, it's a really thought out structure. You can see there is a lot of intellectual thinking that has gone into it. Now the other possibility is, maybe there was this matter, and out of this matter all this manyness has come about. Matter means atom. So as science tells us today that all this world is a formation of atoms, each form that we have is nothing but a different organization of atoms in this. It may be a microphone or a table or the human being. We are nothing but specifically a structure of a particular formation of atoms. Then the Sankhya argues that if it is a question of atoms, then how could there be things like intellect and mind and ego? So how did that come about? So that's not possible. So they again reject same, because they understand that intellect and ego is something to do with consciousness. Well, okay, they will agree that the glass or the bottle or the table have come about from matter. But what about human ego? Or the intellect and the mind, which are apparently full of consciousness. But you will see this argument itself is anti-Sankhya. We'll come to that argument. But let us understand. So they say matter cannot create a conscious being like intellect and mind. So they come back very clear that Purusha, Prakriti, is the creator of this unconscious world. Now we will see in Aurobindo also, we just started yesterday, that Prakriti is constituted of three gunas or essential modes of energy. Well, Sankhya says yes, there are these three gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. They are constituents of Prakriti, though through it of the worldly objects. Being subtle and imperceptible, their existence is inferred from their effects, pleasure, pain and indifference. They themselves possess qualities like lightness, activity, heaviness, etc. So these qualities, we must understand, are not qualities like I say, this wire is red. Redness is its quality. But maybe if I scratch this deeper, then it need not be the red color, there could be something else that comes through. But when we say that Prakriti is constituted of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, it is not a quality that has been externally imposed and a quality that could be taken out and separated. It is like a strand of rope. Now what is a rope? It has got, a rope by definition is a combination of three strands within. If you take out one, you don't call it a rope. So by definition, a rope is made of three strands. It could be two also, but it is a winding of three strands. So Prakriti is like a rope with these three Sattva, Rajas and Tamas as the interwoven winding there. And this is, as you would say, this intertwining of this Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, they make up the rope called Prakriti. And they use the word rope for Prakriti because it is this rope which binds Purusha to itself. And we have seen yesterday that Purusha in the beginning is bound to Prakriti. All the time thinking that it is Prakriti, that I am Prakriti. So there is this kind of a binding. Now we will see, we will come back to Prakriti a little later. Let me go through the Purusha aspect, which of course we have seen it is consciousness. It's the soul or the self or the knower. It is neither body nor senses, nor brain, nor mind, nor ego, nor intellect. It is not a substance which possesses the quality of consciousness. Consciousness is its essence. Well, this is a simple definition we have seen, and we don't add to Purusha anything right now. When we come to the objections or the weaknesses of Sankhya, then we'll take up Purusha again. Now we come straight to that question with which we ended yesterday, that we said Prakriti has this three qualities, gunas of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. They are in an equilibrium, and we said Purusha is there. And yesterday we said, how does this disequilibrium come about in the three qualities, in the three gunas? And yesterday I explained it by saying it's a kind of a glance from the Purusha, or a look from Purusha, or a consent from the Purusha. But they have in fact made it more objective, if I can say, more impersonal. Because if I use the word look or a glance, that means there is a conscious, somebody is doing it consciously looking at that person. So Sankhya would say, no, let's not use the word look also, or a glance, or a consent. They have a very fine word called Purusha Sannidhi Matra. That means just the nearness of Purusha to Prakriti. Sannidhi is closeness, nearness. So the very fact that Purusha is close or comes closer or is close, Purusha Sannidhi Matra, just only that much, that is the closeness, there is a disequilibrium in the Prakriti. So they have taken away this, but we will see it doesn't stand whole very much, because Sankhya, although in the beginning it sounds pretty sound, we will see there's lots of loopholes in that. I mean, even this Purusha Sannidhi Matra has its own loophole. I'm not taking you into that right now, others will get puzzled or confused. So this is how the disequilibrium begins, and what we saw yesterday, the evolution or the evolutes come into place. Well, let me draw a chart here. Maybe I'll take a couple of minutes. Now we have the Purusha is there and the Prakriti. These are the first two essentials. Now what happens? From this Prakriti element, we have the very first one is called Buddhi or Mahati. This in fact is the first one. Then we have Ahankar, or of course we know this as the ego sense. And this is what is important. We have now Prakriti is based on Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. We have got three gunas. So we have from the guna of Sattva, we have got different elements coming in. Now the first one here that comes off is the mind or the manas. Now Aurobindo calls that the next organ, next element that come in are what he calls as a sense functions. And in this sense function there are 5 sense functions of knowledge and 5 sense functions of action. Let's take this broad outline. I'll give you the details. So we have actually third is the mind, Buddhi is the first, Ahankara is the second, third is the mind or the manas, and then we have 10 sense functions, out of which 5 are meant for knowledge and 5 for action. Now amongst the 5 senses of knowledge, we have obviously sight, smell, taste, touch and hearing. Now these 5 senses of knowledge, and I'm rubbing this out, these are 5 senses of knowledge, and then we have this 5 senses of action. We have here all the 5 actions of movement, etc. Say we have from hearing, where is that hearing? Yeah. Prehension or hearing. Then we have locomotion. That's the movement. Then we have excretion. Then we have speech. And then we have last reproduction. These are 5 senses of action. Now just see this. These are 5 of action, and we have seen previously there were 3 that were, we have the Mahat, Buddhi, plus Ahankar, and plus the mind. So that makes it 13. So these 10 senses of functions and these 3 makes us 13, what he calls 13 karanas or the organs. Now that's something that you should, I made it a little brief, but that's sufficient to give you an idea that the first 13 evolutes are Mahat, 2 is Ahankar, 3 is mind, And then we have 10 of knowledge and 5 of action, that makes it 13 karanas or 13 organs. These are the first evolutes, and these Aurobindo calls, actually we don't have it in that philosophy, but he has made it as easier. He calls it the subjective aspect. This is the subjective aspect which has got this 13 karanas or 13 organs. Now once this is clear, we can go to the second step of the objective aspect, subjective and objective. In the objective aspect, we have what they would call as the tanmatras, or the subtle energies, and where we have sound, touch, form or sight, then we have taste, and then we have the smell. And to that we have sound, Akash, we have Akash is sound, then touch is Vayu, then we have sight is fire, then this is taste is Apas or water, and this is Prithvi or the earth. I'll just give an explanation first. Let's write down. And these are called Mahabhutas. Now, let me give you a little explanation of this. So, we have seen the first thing is a subjective aspect. We have got 13 karanas, in which we have seen we have the smell of the 5 senses of knowledge. That means it is out of these 5 senses that we acquire the knowledge of the world. It's very simple to know that. And then we have seen the other 5 of action. That is obviously we have reproduction, ejection or excretion, locomotion, movement, then hearing. By hearing we come to know things, and the speech itself. So those were the subjective aspects of the 13 karanas. Now coming to the objective aspects, first there are these subtle properties and the gross properties. The tanmatras are the subtle properties and Mahabhutas are the gross ones. But gross also not in the sense of, but they are universal. Yeah, one thing we can say is, these are also universal. So out of this subtle energy of sound is created the Akash or the ether. Out of the subtle energy of touch is created Vayu or air, or from form or sight is created Tejas and fire, and from taste and Apas and water, and from smell we have Prithvi or earth. But actually Aurobindo puts them the other way. In the book that is given a philosophy, they have given this way. But Aurobindo tells us actually we have first the Mahabhutas, the ether, air, fire, water and earth. These are the first creatives, evolutes, and from which are connected now with sound, etc., etc. You can see these 5 elements that we call the ether, air, fire, water, earth. They are innately connected with our own tanmatras, with our own body. And these bodies are again, they become the instruments of knowledge. So here we have now, these are the 10. So this becomes the 10 objects here, and these are 13. So 13 Karanas and 10 these objects makes it 23. And then plus to this one is the Prakriti itself. So we have got here actually 24 tattvas as they call them. 24 tattvas. Some people add another one plus one Purusha. And then they make it as 25 tattvas of Sankhya Yoga. But this is a little option. The real evolutes are only 23. Evolutes are that which have come about from something original. So Purusha and Prakriti need not be taken as cannot be taken as evolutes, because they are actually the originals. They themselves are not created from something else. However, some books say we can add one for Prakriti, one for Purusha, make it a round figure of 25. I'm telling you this only because some people have this opinion, some others don't have it. But we should understand that 23 are the original evolutes and the other two are optional. We may choose to take them or not. Now this is the theory of the evolution or the creation. I wouldn't say the word evolution, creation, which for the first time in our Indian system of philosophy was given. Up until then we had, in the Vedas and the Upanishads and the other Puranas, that the God created this, Brahman, out of Brahman, this goddess came, this God came and he did that. It's a kind of, descriptive, but this kind of a scientific thing which really brings the whole thing to the level of gross matter, then the senses, then all the movement that we have of excretion, rejection, reproduction, etc. So they come down to the earth level. So this is a kind of I won't call it scientific, but a kind of a logical structure. So the Sankhyas have this, are in fact Sankhya's are the only philosophy which has really given this structure. Whatever are its problems and defects which we will see now, this has been held through all our philosophies for so many centuries. Yeah? So that was in brief, and maybe while here, before I go to the other one, let me also read out what we were saying yesterday about yoga. This yoga system, of course, is started by Patanjali, and yoga, it takes the help of the theory of Sankhya. It doesn't build its own philosophy. So therefore they say Sankhya and yoga are like the blind man and the lame man. They cannot exist without each other. So they're always spoken of together, Sankhya and yoga. So yoga very conveniently takes the philosophy of Sankhya, but then it says, I will show you the path. And in that path, one of the major things is the control of the chitta. And that is why Patanjali Yoga is also known as Raja Yoga, because it's the control of the mind. We have seen the very first active principle in this creation has been mind. After the Mahat, the Buddhi, then there is Ahankara, then comes the mind. And it is, in fact, mind is also considered one of the senses, 11th sense. So it's a mind which controls the senses, which controls the movement. So then the yoga said, if I can control the mind or purify the mind, then all my external movements, like we said, smelling and reproduction and rejection and all speech, etc., they could all be well controlled. My senses can be controlled and the world can be controlled. So they focus purely on the chitta, and then the question is, how do you control the chitta? Chitta, or the mind, which is a combination of buddhi, how do we control that? So you see, they have gone directly straight into the point of self-control. And where do you self-control? The manas. So they said, how do we go about? So they have given us 8 steps. That is why it's called the Ashtanga Yoga, the yoga of 8 steps. In fact, Aurobindo's yoga, it was there as 10 steps first. When he realized in the Alipur jail, he was given 10 steps of his own yoga. Then he developed into Sapta Chatushtaya. He developed into 7, into 4, 28 steps. But everywhere we see this question of the steps being followed. And he was revealed first that only 10 steps. So here, we have these 8 steps, and the end and aim of these 8 steps, as we said yesterday, is samadhi. So now you understand why they aimed only at samadhi, because for the mind which is kind of disturbed, which is controlling, which is acting, the best way is to become still. So if mind can have a state of samadhi, then it can have the best control of everything. But there is a process. You see, they have done a very logical system, and that is why I think it is so very popular even in the contemporary country, in India and abroad also. And in fact, more and more people are taking to Raja Yoga abroad. And as you know, Swami Vivekananda had followed it to a great length and depth, because it is a very, very powerful instrument to draw you out of this world on the mental level. So first one he says is yama. Yama it means abstention and includes the 5 vows of Jainism. So now you see the influence of Jainism over Sankhya and yoga. And Jainism, as you know, is very ascetic. And because of this ascetic attitude, Sankhya said it's better that we practice on this life instead of thinking of Brahman and liberation and Atman and all that. So because of this Jainism, the 5 abstentions are from injury through thought, word or deed, ahimsa. That, of course, you can see is the central tenet of Jainism, ahimsa, non-violence. And you can see now from where Gandhiji got this famous slogan of non-violence. It is from Jainism itself. So that is how he brought in the influence of religion into politics. So it's not non-violence was not a political attitude, it was more a religio-political attitude which was brought into pretty effectively. He used religion pretty effectively in politics. So this is the first and the most important thing, ahimsa. Then abstain from falsehood and from stealing. Like we have the 10 commandments, these are the 5 commandments. Ahimsa, then falsehood, then we have stealing and passions and lust. That means to follow brahmacharyahood, and from avarice or aparigraha, greed. So we have very basic things, which in modern terms we can say it's a good diet in the vital and the mental level. To be away from lust and greed, what your diets tell us, don't take this, don't take that, don't take fried thing, don't take. It really adds to a healthy food. So anything of this greed, passion, that is retain brahmacharyahood, and then ahimsa, etc. So at all times, a Raja Yogi is supposed to practice this. Next is Niyama. It is self-culture and includes external and internal purification, Shaucha, contentment, Santosha, austerity, Tapas, study, Swadhyaya, and devotion to God, Ishvara Pranidhana. Well, the last one, devotion to God, you can imagine, was not there in the Sankhya, but yoga introduced this concept of God. Because it's important, the moment devotion comes, God has to come in. Without God, the point of devotion doesn't hold true. So now you see, this is a self-culture. This is purification, contentment, austerity, swadhyaya. These are all, the ways of a monk, the ways of the brahmacharin, ways of a sage, who is really living a life which is contented with his life, and there is austerity. In fact, you could see, if I can put it largely, this was also practiced by our early sadhaks. In those days, there was this entire question of swadhyaya. And in fact, I think this question of Swadhyaya, which developed into really classes in the evening by people like Panditji and all that, people started reading, they did not understand the life divine, then they started going to somebody for explanation, and the whole thing started becoming a school of practice. So Swadhyaya was important. Even now in the ashram, people read the Savitri or something or the Mother and Aurobindo as a practice, as a daily practice. And of course, devotion to God is there. Then there's contentment. Well, this contentment of Santosha is a thing that is most important, which I don't know if we have much of it today. In those early days, yes, if they were given a cot and a bed, a mattress and a pillow, a table chair, and the only thing that they kind of possessed was a kuja to get water from the ashram filter. Nothing else. No food, no extra, no fridges, no fans, nothing. But that's what they were given. And in fact, if anybody was offered by an outsider an extra item, they had to take permission from the mother. So that was the austerity, and that was the contentment. That we will receive things only from the mother and from none else. In fact, Champaglaji once, when he was given by the mother something, he said, "No, mother, I don't need it." You see, one could be that extremely austere, have this austerity also. Then Aurobindo, I think, wrote to him saying, "No, you should be detached in either way, having it or not having it. You should practice detachment. So don't be attached to not having. So that is also an attachment. So you should practice both." So that is how they were trained, that sometimes when you are given, take it with non-attachment and not with attachment. You see, if one is rigid on that non-attachment and not taking, that's again an attachment. So these things were there in practice, and of course we'll not go much into detail. We have to go into our own lesson, otherwise we can talk a lot about the old ashram. Now next is this asanas. This is where came the Hatha Yoga, because you can imagine this Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga, and they were all there at that time. So one could borrow a system from the other and say, hey, this Hatha Yoga seems to be a good one, just as the Sankhya philosophy was good. So this Raja Yoga, they took the Hatha Yoga in principle. I mean, in the whole Hatha Yoga postures. So they said we should have it as a means, that means study and comfortable posture. There are various kinds of postures which are a physical help to meditation. This is the discipline of the body. But you see, they have added this little thing. So Hatha Yoga is not just for maintaining your health, which will be a natural result. But they said it will be helpful for meditation. You see, remember, all these are going towards meditation. So when they said about the study, activity of the mind, austerity, again a mental withdrawal, contentment, again on the mental level, then all this question of being away from passions and lust, from avarice. So everything of the vital, now we can understand, everything of the vital they were withdrawing, they were cutting out. And even the physical exercise, they said it helps you for meditation. And of course, what helps you really in meditation is that added thing called pranayama. So they took pranayama, which is a means of control of breath and deals with regulation of inhalation, retention and exhalation of breath. It is beneficial to health and is highly conducive to the concentration of the mind. But it must be performed under expert guidance, otherwise it may have bad after effects. That has been followed in the country. We always had a guru who to tell us about yogasanas and pranayama. So you see, Raja Yoga is now dealing pretty much in a good balance. It has given you the physical, Hatha Yoga and pranayama. Then later on it will give you about dharana and dhyana and samadhi on the mental level. Vital it has completely cut off. By cutting off by yama and niyama. So it did attack logically all the three levels: physical development, vital annulment and mental development. So on the mental level it said pratyahara. It is control of the senses and consists in withdrawing the senses from their objects. Our senses have a natural tendency to go outward to objects. Our senses have a natural tendency, but they must be checked and directed towards the internal goal. It is a process of introversion. These five are called external aids to yoga, bahiranga sadhana, while the remaining three which follow are called internal aids, antaranga sadhana. You see, they were very clear. That's what you should appreciate in our old yoga systems, that they are very rational. It's not just, they said do this and don't do that. They're very rational, analytical. So these five are called the bahiranga, this external. Because the last one, pratyahara, is also a kind of a control of the senses and withdrawal. Well, this you can see, you're already getting it in the first one, in the yama and niyama, when you're getting away from greed and from passion and from all that. Already your senses are withdrawing. But this is the external thing. So once you practice this, then you can go into the second step, the internal. But at the same time, let us not think that these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, one after the other. No. They are all to be done simultaneously, at least till the question of 6 to 7, you can do all of them simultaneously. 8 is only the result. So what is this next step? Dharana. It is fixing the mind on the object of meditation, like the tip of the nose or the mind point of the eyebrows or the lotus of the heart or the image of the deity. The mind must be steadfast like the unflickering flame of a lamp. So the dharana is now the process of concentration. What we in our yoga would say is the concentration, the process of concentration. Because Mother and Shravan have always told us that before concentration you cannot have meditation. So we all say, hey, let's sit for meditation, let's go for meditation, Matra Mandir meditation. It's not the meditation, we go more for the concentration. So it's this concentration which will lead you to meditation. Because meditation is a kind of a state of the mind where you meditate upon something. Whereas this concentration is focusing your entire being on one object. So here it is a fixing of the mind on the object of meditation. And there also, as I told you yesterday, they take you from the physical to the abstract. Physical, as I said, you keep a lamp, a candle, concentrate on that. Or sometimes you concentrate on the tip of your nose. is already a little thing moved, and then on the eyebrow, in the middle of the eyebrows, on the center of your forehead, but which you don't see, but you start feeling. You see the flame, I can see. But then when it comes here, I cannot see, but already the focus is there, that I'm focusing on something invisible. I can feel it, but I cannot see my own forehead. But that helps you already in a great concentration, fixing of concentration. And from there, they will take you next to the qualities like beauty or eternity or justice or something lovely. Then they take you to the last one, the abstract thought of Brahman or Godhead. So see, there are really steps. So as you move into the abstraction, so is your consciousness moving into that samadhi level. So this is really a very concrete step, if I may say, and people have gained much. Many people have gained much by this process. So after this dharana come dhyana. It means meditation and consists in the undisturbed flow of thought round the object of meditation. It is a steadfast contemplation without any break. So once we have practiced the concentration or dharana, then there is, as they say, an undisturbed flow of thought round the object of meditation. That is where the meditation comes in, and as I said, you meditate upon Brahman. You meditate upon God, you meditate upon Mother, whatever you want to say. That means there is a continuous flow of thoughts only about that object. Well, as a result of these 7 steps, you have the 8th one, samadhi. It means concentration. This is the final step in yoga. Here the mind is completely absorbed in the object of meditation. In dhyana, the act of meditation and the object of meditation remain separate, but here they become one. It is the highest means to realize the cessation of mental modifications, which is the end. It is the ecstatic state in which the connection with the external world is broken and through which one has to pass before obtaining liberation. Well, that is the last step, that of the samadhi. And as we said, you get completely disconnected from the world because you are completely connected with the object of meditation, which is Brahman. So these are the normal 8 steps, but which as times have gone by, you can imagine, have gained more and more power, and especially they have become extremely powerful in the West. Why? Because of the simple logical steps they give you. And a Western mind always likes this logical steps. If you say just aspire and reject and surrender, they don't much understand. It's too abstract. What do we surrender? And what is this question of aspiration? What is this rejection? But here you see there are all 8 steps. First do this. These are the 5 things you must abstain from. These are the 5 things you should practice. This is dhyana, you must sit in the morning. This is dharana, sit in the evening. So it is well structured logically. And so this packet of Raja Yoga has been well sold in the West. And it has also included asanas and pranayama, and which is a great attraction for the Western mind, something to do with the physical consciousness, with the physical body development. So in a way it is pretty much integral packet, I must say, for the contemporary Western mentality. And so when we go out, we see a lot of this question of pranayama, asana, dhyana and dharana and samadhi, in fact, Raja Yoga. So this is, in brief, the concept of Sankhya and Yoga. And then we will take up, after the short break, what Sri Aurobindo has to say about this yoga, especially Sankhya. He doesn't go much into yoga, but Sankhya is the one that will bring out a lot of controversies and a lot of problems. We'll see that after a short break.